I used to have major stage fright and considered myself as an introvert for most of my professional life. I remember myself always sitting in meetings in the back. Well, back then, before they were all virtual. Always trying to keep quiet to myself, being too scared that if I speak my opinion, someone will find out that I'm just a fraud, that I shouldn't really be here, that I don't belong. This phenomena is called the Imposter Syndrome, and for those of you who don't know it, it's very common to many people, and especially to women working in tech. I never could have dreamed I'd be standing here today telling you all about it. I never could imagine I'd become an entrepreneur and be the one behind this conference. If someone would have told me back then I'd be standing on stage, speaking in front of hundreds of people, and start my own company, I would probably laugh to your face. Who? Me? No way. But turns out life has a way of surprising you. And today I would like to share with you my story, my personal story, and of my own journey, and the story behind Women on Stage. Hi, my name is Moran Weber. I live in Israel, and I'm the CEO and founder of Women on Stage. My professional background is in software engineering. I've been working in the tech industry for the past 10 years. I used to work many years at Wix. And other than that, I'm also a social psychologist, meaning I have a master's degree in social psychology and I mainly specialize in gender studies. I'm a public speaker today, and I'm deeply devoted to supporting and empowering women in the tech industry. So, what are we going to talk about today? In the first section of my talk, I will share with you my own personal story and the story behind Women on Stage, and how I managed to overcome my own stage fright and become a public speaker. In the second part of my talk, I will share with you some power tips I've gathered throughout the years that helped me manage my own stage fright and imposter syndrome on stage. So let's begin. That's me in the picture. I look satisfied and content, aren't I? Well, as I've told you before, that was not always the case. I wasn't born a speaker. And let me start by sharing my story and how it all began. So, I've already told you about my imposter syndrome and about my stage fright. I started working in the tech industry in 2010 as a software developer. I was an introvert, mainly trying to avoid drawing too much attention to my direction. I remember when I first heard about this phenomena of imposter syndrome, I thought to myself, oh my God, that's me. But all of these other women, they don't really have it. In my case, it's real. I am an imposter. I really don't belong here. In my case, it's real. So I loved being a software engineer and I was quite good at it. But after a few years, I've started to feel like I'm missing something. Like my career is missing an extra kick. And in 2017, I applied to a women-only presentation skills workshop at Wix. I was working at Wix back then. And this is a point worth mentioning because I've seen it happening multiple times on various occasions. One might ask, why do you need a woman-only workshop? The thing is that they used to have these workshops open for all, but there were no women applying. But suddenly, when it was women only, it was suddenly a full house. And I've seen this pattern happening countless times. Same goes for job description, for accelerators, and so on. When you're approaching women directly, suddenly they feel it's much more inclusive and they feel like they're more welcome. Same goes for other underrepresented minorities in tech. So my advice here is to always actively seek the underrepresented and directly approach them if you want to be more inclusive and if you want to include more of them. Anyway, that presentation skills workshop was really a life-changing experience for me. I suddenly felt like I do have something interesting to say. And the entire group was really supportive and intimate. So after that, I actually started speaking in meetups and actually also started and co-founded a very successful meetup series for women in tech called the Women in Tech Forum at Wix. And actually fell in love with public speaking. I was surprised to find out that I'm pretty good at it, and it started to make my career fly. I felt like I finally found the best way I can speak out and communicate my knowledge in a way that I don't feel like an imposter anymore, in a way that I feel like I belong. And during that time, I also became a mentor for dozens of other speakers and helped them build and polish their presentations as well. I also started to speak at conferences myself, and one time I spoke in front of 800 people at the biggest conference in Israel. It seemed that that my career is on the right track of things. And then, late 2018, exactly 2 years ago, I experienced a huge personal health crisis. I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and for those of you who don't know, the thyroid gland is a butterfly-shaped organ located right here on your neck, outside of your throat. And the diagnosis came after a long period of time where I was frequently experiencing throat infections and throat pain. It lasted for many months until I was diagnosed, and I was suffering all along. The pain was so frequent that I was having trouble to speak. I found myself at the age of 33 at the top of my career with a family and a 3-year-old kid at home. But I was experiencing so much pain to speak that I've tried to speak as little as I could. Every word that I said has caused me pain. I remember I used to count words in my head, try to minimize the amount of words I need to say in order to make my message understandable, because it was just too painful. Back then, I truly felt like my voice had been taken away from me. I felt like I've lost my voice. Okay, so you can all relax now. I'm okay. But back then, I've really felt like it's time that I change my life completely. You know, when life gives you lemons, turn them into lemonade. So I've come to realize that this is my wake-up call to do things differently. I've made up my mind that I want to be the change I want to see in the world. So I left my job and started working on the Women on Stage platform. First, it started as a side project because I noticed that there are too many occasions when there aren't any women speaking on tech events. And when you would ask the event organizers why there aren't any women on their list, they would always say, well, we've looked, but we couldn't find anyone relevant, or we couldn't find anyone who knows about these things. And I was really pissed off about that because I personally knew so many of these talented women from the time I was managing the Meetup series. So I decided to build a platform for women to showcase themselves based on their professional knowledge, so nobody will say there aren't any relevant women out there. I launched the platform in May 2020 after the COVID-19 pandemic had already started, and to my surprise, the platform went insanely viral and grew so quickly to hundreds of speakers worldwide. I think it's actually pretty symbolic because after I felt like I've lost my own voice, I have decided to create a platform that will amplify the voices of others. After that, I had a vision. It wasn't enough for me, and I already imagined the next steps. I wanted to build a full-blown course to train the next generation of women on stages. The inspiration came from that very first women-only presentation skills workshop. But I wanted to build something more robust and something more comprehensive. My assumption was that if you take super talented women engineers and push them forward, you can generate amazing new tech speakers and turn the needle for the entire tech industry. I wanted to create the same impact it made on my career for others. But what happened next surprised even me. Because the course started as a pilot, first to validate my assumptions. I never could have dreamed it would be such a huge success. generating such incredible new tech superstars, the next thought leaders of tech. And today, in this conference, you're witnessing these talented women after they've been trained for the past 3 months. Feels like an amazing recap for my journey, and we're just getting started because we're only going to grow. You're going to hear our voices everywhere. 2 years later, and I'm here speaking about it in front of all of you people at a tech conference. And all of these fantastic women are here with me. 2 years later, after I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and I've created a platform which showcases hundreds of women speakers in tech to amplify their voices, to make sure our voices are heard. And thank you for being a part of that. So now you know, I'm just like you. I wasn't born a speaker, and I don't think that this is a natural trait that people are just born with. I think you can learn how to become one. And throughout the years, I've gathered a list of power tips that help me manage my own stage fright, and now it's time I share these tips with you. Before we start, let me manage a little bit of your expectations, because I don't think the term should be overcome stage fright. I must admit, I still have it. I'm still always very excited before I go up on stage, even here, even today, even when it's online and I can't really see you and you can't really see me in person. The excitement of being in the center of attention still gets me pumped up and all sweaty. So most likely, you won't really fully get over it. You will probably continue to feel that excitement bubbling up in your stomach. But that's okay. Because I think that rather than expecting to completely overcome that stage fright, you need to learn how to manage it. You need to learn how to use it. We shouldn't let it manage us. We should be the one holding the wheel. You should use that fear and that anxiety to improve yourself, to get better at what you do, and to become much more professional. So what is stage fright anyway? For starters, it's one of the most common and most natural fears. Human beings are social animals. Evolution has made us very susceptible to social judgment. Millions of years ago, those who were excluded from the group were sentenced to death. We live in groups. We are social animals. We need each other to survive. Being at the center of attention is very stressful. Adrenaline is running, our heartbeat is getting fast, our palms get sweaty. It is really scary. Trust me, I know. I'm experiencing it right now as we speak. So don't feel like you're the only one who experiences it. It's supernatural. It's so natural that research has shown that many people say that their number one fear is stage fright, ahead of death. And let me read this quote by Jerry Seinfeld. According to most studies, people's number one fear is public speaking, ahead of death, spiders, or heights. Number 2 is death. Death is number 2. Does that sound right? This means that to the average person, if you go to a funeral, you're better off at the casket than doing the eulogy. So, if it's so bad, now what? Don't worry, I've got you covered. And here are my power tips. Number 1, Amy Cuddy, which is a social psychologist from Harvard University, has a very, very famous TED Talk where she tells the story of how she was injured in a car accident. She was told that her IQ had dramatically dropped and she has to quit school. She said that she kept feeling like an imposter, that she doesn't belong here, that she shouldn't be here. So she developed a method for gaining back her powers. She calls it the power pose. So whenever you feel inadequate, you need to stand on the power pose like Wonder Woman, open your chest, pull your shoulders back, and imagine yourself at your best. Take a deep breath. And when she tested it into the lab, she saw that people who stand like that before stressful events like job interviews or before going up on stage actually have lower cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone, and higher levels of testosterone, which makes us feel more powerful. So according to Amy Cuddy, don't just fake it till you make it. Fake it till you become it. Number 2, practice. A lot. One of the most critical aspects of becoming a public speaker is to practice. A lot. Out loud. You need to rehearse twice or 3 times more as much as you would probably think you need to. Steve Jobs wasn't born a speaker. He used to practice all the time. Good speakers, TED speakers, they practice their pitch hundreds of times until they remember it all by heart. When you practice something, you learn to prepare yourself for the real thing. When you practice, your anxiety levels are dropping. And when I say practice, I don't mean do it quietly. I mean go to a private room, close the door, and run through your entire presentation yourself, alone, out loud. It may feel ridiculous at first, but you will learn a lot about which aspects of your presentations need more polishing, where you get tongue-tied and need to prepare more. The more prepared you are, the less worried you will be about looking nervous, forgetting your lines, or losing your train of thought. Okay, number 3. You need to practice, but you don't need to memorize it all. Well, actually, you only need to memorize the beginning. We're usually at the top of our excitement at the beginning of our presentation. So when you practice, memorize only the first 3 to 5 minutes of your speech, because after that, you will get more comfortable on stage and the flow will go on its own. There's no need to memorize the other parts because it's too difficult to remember everything. And when you try to memorize too much and if you forget a line, you might get stressed and about forgetting. But actually only you can tell the difference. Only you know if there's something you forgot. Number 4. Sometimes things get bad. Sometimes unexpected things might occur. It helps if you try to imagine the worst that could happen and more importantly, how you overcome it. A few years ago, I saw someone I deeply appreciate. Her name is Ilan Noga, giving a keynote at a big tech conference. For some reason, her slides were missing and there were some technical difficulties. But rather than getting upset and nervous, she started making jokes about it. I admired the way how she handled it. And 6 months later on, when I was giving a tech talk in front of hundreds of people, suddenly my slides weren't loading and my presentation loaded empty. But I remembered what I saw her doing and I did the exact same thing. I used the exact same joke I saw her doing. And it went okay. The audience laughed. I was off the hook. The presentation came back like nothing happened. So always visualize the worst that could happen, but more importantly, visualize your recovery. Number 5, always dry run. Never go up on stage before you dry run with other people. Always gather feedback from people around you, preferably those who understand what you're talking about and care about you. Always ask for sincere feedback and learn to improve out of it. I genuinely think that this is one of my most important tips. Always gather feedback and don't take it personally. Use it to get better. Things always look differently from how you perceive them when compared to the outside. And number 6, rather than focusing on how people will judge you, shift your focus to what you mean to achieve, to your motivation, your goals, the thing that you want people to take home with them. Remember, it's about them. It's not about you. Another thing you can do is to pretend your fears and your anxiety are actually excitement. Instead of saying, "Oh my God, I'm terrified," construct it differently. Say, "Oh my God, I'm so excited." Even if you're not, even if you're terrified, don't worry. Your feelings will follow afterwards. You need to do this mental shift in order to construct your feelings differently. So let us recap. Number 1, don't just fake it till you make it. Fake it till you become it. Number 2, always practice twice or 3 times more as much as you think out loud. Practice out loud. Number 3, only memorize the first few minutes of your talk and not the rest. Number 4, try to visualize the worst that could happen and how you recover from it. Number 5, always dry run before you get up on stage and be open for external feedback. And number 6, try to shift your focus from performance to communication, to your goals, to what you want to achieve. I hope these tips will help you as much as they helped me. And now it's your turn to shine. I invite you all to follow me on social media and to register as speakers on the Women on Stage platform, or register to the next rounds of the Academy on our website. Thank you. Goodbye.